Hi, guys. Welcome back. Today, I have another TC from Top Tier TC with us, Chelsea Westover, and she has a company called Tru Flow TC. So, welcome, Chelsea.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you for coming on the show. Okay. So, why don't you tell us about how you found Top Tier TC and when you
Yeah,
joined?
absolutely. I'll try to give you an executive summary. So I actually started with creative financing back in 2021. So I was working as an acquisitionist for a creative finance wholesaler. Long story short, I started off with one. She was in a mentoring program. She was brand new to creative finance. She was brand new to having anybody underneath her acquiring properties or, reaching out to leads. And she actually was just so overwhelmed with six people, just basically like pinging her, like, what's this mean? How do we do this? That she ended up just saying, hey, I can't do this. And we actually were lucky enough to be able to work for the primary wholesaler, who was the wholesaler and also running the mentoring program. So I got really good hands-on experience with them. Did that for about 6 or 7 months. And then through that process, I actually found out about Pace's group and all of the above. So in that business, I transitioned into a TC and I was TCing deals for them. Then buyers that was way before Top Tier existed. So there wasn't many of us out there. It was starting to become a thing. So if you met another creative TC, it was like, oh my gosh, like you exist too. So did that for a while, all the way up until when Top Tier took fruition last year. I want to say it was in June timeframe. I found it around December timeframe, and it was one of those things like, man, I wish I would have had this when I first started. It was amazing. We didn't have this back then. It was you talk to attorneys, you talk to title companies, you Google, you try to learn from other TCs in the industry, and that's pretty much how we got our start. So when I found Top Tier, it was basically like an amazing community that I wanted to be a part of because it was something that I'd been looking for years at that point. So super excited that Molly and Pace were able to create it.
That's awesome. So you were a TC before you
Yeah.
joined the community, and even though there's a lot of training and stuff in the community. So
Yep.
about how long was that you were a TC before you found?
Top Tier. So I
Okay.
started at the end of 2021.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
So very end of 2021, I was an acquisitionist for that wholesaling company. And then I transitioned into TC because my personality I'm very much a TC. That's just my avatar. That's where I lie. And so I transitioned into that and then just took off from there.
Gotcha. Okay. So what are you looking for right now to level up in your business?
I'm just looking to grow, to be quite frank with you. It's kind of always been like a side hustle for me.
Mhm.
But I would love to be able to take on more clients and grow my business, help other sellers out and help wholesalers to double their income, investors, same thing. Um, yeah, that's pretty much what I'm looking for right now. So very much looking to take on new clients.
Awesome. All right. So we will get to how you can get a hold of Chelsea here shortly. So what do you provide services to hire that may interest our audience, that our audience may benefit from?
Yeah. So I'm going to talk a little bit about TC. I know you just had a TC, it sounds like, on here from Top Tier, and probably gave a lot of good information, but just so that we're on the same page. So a TC at the base of it, transaction coordination, right?
Mhm.
If you're an investor, for example, you get a deal under contract with a seller. The TC would come in and then they basically take that to closing. That's a very, very high level explanation. And they do everything in between. But for anybody looking to double their income, really look to grow and get out of their business and focus on it as opposed to in it, a TC is where that's really going to help. So basically, I'd like to tell people we can double your income by being the central spoke of your business. So you get a deal under contract and you've gotten deals under contract, right? You've closed deals before.
Mhm.
So, all the pesky stuff you have to follow up with the seller. The seller's calling you at all hours. The buyer, you have to find a buyer. You have to go keep the buyer updated. You have to do the paperwork to start escrow, right? If escrow needs you to go get a payoff, you have to go reach out to the seller, because a lot of times title companies and attorneys won't do that. The attorneys will send the seller an email. You'll wait 2 weeks, ask them for an update, and they'll say, well, I sent the seller an email 2 weeks ago, right? All of these things that you have to keep track of while you have 10 other deals that you're trying to close at the same time. That's where a TC is really going to come in and help, because you don't have to worry about any of that. A TC is going to come in, they're going to deal with all of that, and then they're going to basically just be giving you updates. So me personally, how our business works is that I'm giving updates. I try to do it every other day, even if I don't have an update, because everyone works really hard for that deal. And the last thing you want to feel like is that you're in a black box, right? Of like, what is going on with my deal? That's the last thing that I would want somebody to feel like. So you put hard work into that. I want to put hard work into getting the deal closed for you and making sure that you understand what's going on. Also, so that you can track KPIs and things like that for your business. So beyond that, we're also TCs. Who's the one person in the industry that talks to everybody? A TC, right? We talk to lenders. We talk to title companies, attorneys. We talk to gators. We talk to investors, wholesalers, buyers. We're talking to literally everybody. And so inspectors, right? We can also coordinate inspections. So there's a lot of times when somebody can come to us. And if I've heard really awesome stories where, and I'm sure everybody that wholesales or an investor is familiar with this, you're up to the deadline, closing's tomorrow, and your buyer drops out. And you're like, my contract's about to expire. What am I going to do? You did all this hard work. We've been able to bring buyers in, right? To be able to supplement, to then close, maybe not on time, right?
You're talking about investors, like if their end buyer drops out.
Exactly. Like a wholesaler.
That can't really happen with a traditional one, right? I mean,
Correct.
It can, but it's very rare.
Exactly. So like in wholesaling, I've had this happen before. I'm working for wholesalers. We're literally the day before closing, we're ready to go, and the buyer all of a sudden backs out, right? It was a 2,500 EMD. They're like, whatever, like I'm backing out. And I don't know if you're familiar, but you can't always get your EMD back, and the wholesaler doesn't always get the EMD back either. So at that point, they're like, it's a draw, like, whatever, bad blood between the wholesaler and the buyer. But we're able to then have other buyers on our list to help supplement, right, for the wholesaler, so they can still close that deal. So there's a lot of benefits of working with a TC, not just the fact of closing the deal, but the network, being able to also provide, we see so many things. So we're also able to help with education. If it's a brand new buyer, right, we're able to help walk them through the deal. They may not understand what's going on, and we can help walk them through that, and also set them up for success after the deal, making sure they're getting the right paperwork in place for creative deals, things of that nature. So it's super beneficial to bring a TC, whether you're all the way from, if you're brand new to you're closing 20 to 30 deals. Anyone from any end of the spectrum can benefit from using one.
Right. So like in the beginning, if you're brand new, it's really good to have a TC that can kind of make sure you're checking all the boxes, keeping everything on deadlines and so on and so forth. And then when you're really super experienced, you have so many on your plate, you just can't handle doing all the work. So
yeah. And that's a great point.
Between.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great point. Anywhere from getting education all the way to, I don't have time for this because I need to go find more leads. I want to grow my business. The TC comes in and literally takes care of all of that. So I've heard a lot of times from wholesalers looking to grow their business, they don't have time to be able to track sellers and attorneys and title companies getting payoffs, right? That's not where they should be focusing their time. They should really be focusing on their time where they're going to be making money. That's finding leads, finding buyers, whatever department they want to grow in their business. And they can just leave that to the TC and then just get those regular check-ins with them.
Right, exactly. And that's important too. Make sure you do your regular check-ins.
Yeah.
Make sure when you hire a TC, you stay in communication with them, because if they're reaching out to you, you want to answer them like you want to answer a deal.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And it's really good also for your business, right? If you're tracking KPIs, if you're tracking where your deals are at, how quickly they're closing from contract to finding a buyer to closing, you need all of that. So, and to your point, whenever you're looking for a buyer, that's definitely the question that you want to ask of how much do you communicate, right? Like, what does your communication plan look like for me?
Yeah, make sure that's in your upfront contract. We need continuous, constant communication. So for viewers, can you let them know what a KPI is? We've mentioned it a couple times.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, key
for
performance.
Someone who may not know.
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. Key performance indicator. So basically, I like to think of it as a couple different ways. But one of the main crux I would explain it as is, if you're looking at your business, how can you evaluate if your business is growing if you're not tracking certain metrics? So every single week, are you looking at how many leads do we have? And then from those leads, how are you converting those? And then of those conversions, how many are you closing? Like, those are KPIs that you can track to see how your business is moving, what's working, what's not working. And there's obviously a lot more to it, but that's just a basic example.
Okay. So, quick question. Transaction coordinators are for realtors and investors. Do you help both in your business, or do you mainly work with investors?
So we can do wholesalers, we can work with investors, we can work with real estate agents. I particularly focus more towards investors and wholesalers. I've primarily actually worked with wholesalers and then some investors, but we can absolutely work with any of them.
Okay. So investors, especially when it comes to creative finance, there's a lot more um, different things going on. Like realtors, it's pretty much, I mean, there may be like, different addendums here and there, but it's basically the same process from start to finish. Whereas if you're an investor, especially if you're doing creative finance, there's so many different ways that it can go.
Right.
So,
And there's so many different type ways to close that deal, right? There's so many different, the creative finances, like you're saying. Is it a Morby method? Is it seller financing? Is it hybrid? All of in between. And then it also depends when you're working for a wholesaler, they may want you to go out. I used to work for a wholesaler, and I would actually go and line up inspections. I would get the inspection report for them. They would take that, they would go find the buyer, and then right. So like I would make sure there was a lockbox on the door. So there's a lot of different things that, depending on what you're looking for in your business, a TC can help out with that. And I know that I try to be very flexible with my clients because everybody needs something different to help their business grow. And so me coming in and being rigid doesn't make any sense. It also doesn't help me because I'm not learning. So it's one of those things where it really, I know a lot of TCs in general try to be very flexible with how they're working with their client, making sure that we're meeting the needs that they need.
So speaking of needs, some of the investors, actually a lot of investors also need like post-closing services. So do you provide those, and can you kind of explain to the viewers what post-closing services are and which ones you provide?
Yeah. So post close, 100% do that, and it starts even before closing, making sure that you have the right documents in place, but then also making sure that you're checking everything to verify what the seller is telling you, making sure that everything is up to date on the mortgage portal before closing. There's no unforeseen loan modifications that they didn't tell you about. Making sure that you even have the right numbers to be able to close. So making sure that you're getting the login information, checking that before closing, getting the power of attorney, your authorization to release, all the letters to change your contact information, insurance proceed claims letters, all of the above. So that all starts, I like to call it the pre-closing packet. So that all starts before closing, making sure that it's signed at closing by the buyer. Before you wire funds, right? Always want to make sure that you're getting everything you need from the seller, because and even though these creative deals are supposed to be, I like to call them a continuing relationship, it doesn't always mean that the seller is going to respond to you after closing. So you try to get as much upfront as possible. And then after closing, definitely, like you're saying, changing all the contact information on the mortgage portal, making sure that you can log in, making sure that we're changing the insurance on it. Even same thing with if you want to set up servicing or things like that, helping with that. So those are all, you're 100% correct. Those are all services that I can help with. And then there's
transferring HOA.
Yep, transferring HOA, things like that, following up with HOA to make sure that you have auto payment on, changing utilities over. I don't think people realize it's really exciting once you close on a house, but then when you realize how much work you have to do after the fact, it's one of those bittersweet moments. You're like, yes, I closed on a house. But then you're like, oh crap, I have so much more to do. So
Right.
definitely can continue to take that off, exactly like you're saying, like an investor's plate. And even if we didn't close the deal, we can still help with those types of services. So if you just closed on a deal and you thought that you might be able to do it, and then you're getting into it and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how hard this was or how much work it is or all of the above, you can reach out and sign up and we can help you take over that.
Okay. So basically, I guess you're saying they could also hire you like in the middle of a
Yeah.
deal, or
Yep.
like
I've
it
been
doesn't
brought
have
in.
to always be just because you didn't, sign up with a TC in the beginning doesn't mean that you can't when you realize, oh my gosh, this is way more than I can handle. Let me pull
Yes.
somebody in here.
Yep. I've had deals where it was 3 days before closing I got brought in. And it was basically like drop everything. I checked title work. I specifically remember this one deal that they brought me in. They thought they could do it without a TC. And 3 days before closing, they brought me in. They were like, all right, we thought we could do this, but like, this is just way too, like, can you please come in and like, we're about to close. And I was, you drop everything at that point because you're like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, absolutely. I'll help you. And I came in and the first thing spent all the time going through with the seller and blah, blah, blah. And then I got to title work and I started reviewing title work. And this was a deal in Florida, and it was in the title work under the exceptions that there was a sinkhole reported in the yard. And the title company didn't catch that. So it was one of those things where like, good thing they brought a TC in, otherwise they would have closed on the deal and then find out that there could be a sinkhole in the backyard. So that's also one of the benefits of bringing, it's always good to have multiple eyes on things so that something is not missed.
Exactly.
Yeah. They did not closing that deal.
Because we can all overlook things, all of us.
Yeah. They ended up going back to the seller and asking if they could get an extension on the contract because of this. And the seller said no. So they said, sorry, we're not closing without getting more information on this. Because that's a deal breaker. I mean, that could be a lot of money.
Right. I wonder how that would go. Like, I've only seen sinkholes in movies. Like, I wonder how that goes in real life.
When I read that, I was like, is this real life right now? Like, this is actually a thing? I don't have to, I'm from Maryland, but I live in West Virginia. We don't deal with stuff like that in West Virginia. So
you got a lot of mountains there.
Yeah,
right?
We got a lot of mountains. We get snow. The air is super clean. It smells really good. But yeah, when I saw that, I was like, man, what are you guys dealing with in Florida? I know you have hurricanes, but sinkholes?
Wow. Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
What's been your biggest challenge and what are your strengths when it comes to TCing?
Biggest challenge. I would say the biggest challenge a lot of times is explaining the benefits of a TC. There's been a lot of times when people come in and TCs do a lot of work, and a lot of times investors will complain, your fees are really expensive and all of this stuff. And it's really hard if they've never used a TC before to show them the benefits of using a TC. And you can give them example after example, right? But sometimes they just want to learn on their own, and that's okay. But when you typically work with like an experienced investor or something, or an experienced wholesaler, they understand the benefit of a TC and how much time it can save them, how detail oriented it can save them from getting the right paperwork, being set up correct after closing, all of the above. So a lot of times,
just have the guy that hired you right 3 days before closing tell them all about it.
Exactly. And there's plenty of stories like that, right? When people think they can do this on their own, and when they start to get into it, they really have no idea. And unfortunately, a lot of the times, the seller is the one that takes the hit for it because it's more risk for the due on sale clause if they're not setting things up correctly. The investor can take the hit too, because if they don't put the right insurance in place, right? They think they just need to cancel the insurance, and then the mortgage company puts the insurance in place, and it's a whole heck of a lot more expensive. I've seen that happen before too. So it's hard to I don't want to say convince, but it's hard to convey that to people sometimes if they're only focused on the number and the dollar amount, trying to make the deal work. If you're going to make or break a deal based on a TC's fee, probably not a deal that you should be doing, in my opinion. Or you should do it and have another reason besides like cash flow or something that you're getting into the deal. Right. And then as far as, that was a really good question. I've actually never really sat down and thought about that before. So I appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome.
And then as far as strengths go, it's really very much probably any TC of what they will tell you. Detail-oriented, organization, and process orientation at the end of the day. I remember I've always been a project manager of some sort, or like a program manager in my entire career. And so it was I always like to think of TCs as the project manager for real estate. And I always wondered when I was younger, and I always like to be detail-oriented and organized. I was like, I'm never going to be able to do anything with this, right? You always see like sales and marketing or doctors and things like that, but it was never like in my head of like, what can I actually do and how can I benefit other people? And in real estate, especially too, of like, what can I do that's actually like I'm not a salesperson. I'm not good at marketing, things like that. And then I found TC and I was like, this is perfect. Like, it just like, it's like a shoe fits. Like, it just felt so good.
Right. So, yeah, I like how Molly describes it. She's like, a TC is like the scrub tech. They get everything ready. They prepare everything.
Yep.
They do the cleanup afterwards. They do the setup before. And, the surgeons are like the realtors and investors and stuff like that.
Yeah. No.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yes. Yeah.
So
she is very good at showing how beneficial a TC can be in a business, especially with the way that she was able to just, her and Pace have just extremely blown up everything. It's awesome what they've been doing.
Yep. It was meant to be. I mean, she has those organizational skills, and she's a little bit of a visionary herself. She gets the really great ideas, and he's like the oxygen that fanned her flame.
Yeah, I like that.
I'm the queen of analogies. It's a not necessary gift, but it's a gift, I guess.
That's hilarious.
So, do you have a podcast or a coaching program or anything like that for viewers might be interested in?
So I actually watched Pace Morby's. He was on this, I think it was like, I forget how many weeks it was, but it was basically about marketing. And one of the things that he had talked about was Streamline and how you should really start a YouTube channel or Streamline or what have you to be able to, instead of just a one-time thing where you're doing a live and then it disappears and no one ever sees it again, but people can constantly see your face over and over again, exactly like he's been able to do with his channel. So I am in the works of starting to launch my Streamline channel. Very basic Chelsea Westover's, podcasts or what have you. So I'm really excited to start that. I'm probably going to start targeting different TCs, different investors, different wholesalers that have a really fun story or a deal that was like super juicy, very spicy, that they just want to come on and talk about. Because I always love talking about real estate. And especially as a TC, I always love learning about other people's deals. Like, how did that actually play out, right? Of like, there's just so many ins and outs that can happen. I was listening to one the other day about how there was an investor. They purchased a property on a wrap and they wrapped it to an end buyer, but then they sold the note and like, how does, learning about all those intricacies. Yeah, that's exactly my face. I was like, what? So how everyone is able to figure the different problems out. It's really cool to learn about all that. So working in the works of trying to launch that right now.
Wow. Okay. So do you have like a real rough estimate of when you think it will be launched?
Any day now.
Oh, okay. So real soon.
Yeah, we're
not like soon. A month out or a week out. No. Like any day. Okay.
Yeah, any day now. I'm really
let me know if you need any help with any of that.
Absolutely.
I started when he started the whole Project Forward thing, and it kind of got paused, and there's a handful of us that just kept going. So like, I learned a lot in the beginning, but then once it got paused, ever since then, I've kind of been self-taught with a Gen X
really
brain at that.
You've been doing an awesome job then. Oh my gosh.
Oh, thank you.
I would have never have guessed that. You definitely picked up and kept running with it. Good for you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
You should start a podcast. You should keep it going. You should ask how to keep Project Forward going, and then you could keep going with it.
I think he's going to pick it back up again. I'm just not sure. I think he did say he was going to pick it back up again, but he has so many things on his plate and he wants to do so many things. I don't even know how he does what he does. We're just like, okay, Pace, if you do, we're here. We love you. We'll do the thing,
Support it and do it too, because it's probably a good idea because he comes up with really good ideas.
Oh yeah, definitely.
For sure. Every time I hear Molly talk, I'm like, I don't know how. Even Molly, like, how do you do everything that you do? It is insane how much stuff they have going on, and they keep it like so. I mean, at least on like what I'm able to see, very organized, like very just. It is going in this direction, and both of them. And Molly is like really good at organizing the chaos and keeping everybody in the raft and moving it forward. Like, I don't know how she is amazing.
I would imagine if it's like most visionary CEOs or visionary, business leaders, they usually say, okay, we're going to do the thing, guys, make it happen.
Yep.
Behind the scenes, everybody's like,
Well, I'm sure they're so used to it by now, though, because Pace comes up with like idea after idea after idea. And I feel like Molly's just so like, all right, this is another one. We got to figure it out. Like, here, what do we need to be able to do it? So,
yeah, never a dull moment. And
no.
It doesn't do you any good to sit there and go, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this? We can't do this. Just figure it out. Just figure it out. Just figure it out.
I
And,
mean, that's what you have to do.
yeah, he takes care of people very well that are able to, run behind him and put everything together.
Yeah. Well, and it's one of those things where when you find people that are willing to say, I don't know, but I'll figure it out, and they're not scared of constant change, they're not scared to take on projects that they don't know how to handle, and they don't need a lot of direction. I feel like that's sometimes kind of hard to find because a lot of people don't like working in that ambiguous atmosphere. And so when you're able to find a team that's like, yeah, gung ho about whatever, we'll figure it out, and we're willing to take it on, whatever crazy idea you have, that's, I mean, definitely worth hanging on to. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we look forward to seeing your podcast. I can't wait. Please have me on as a guest.
I was just going to say, I'm going to be hitting you up once I do.
Love it. I need to go be on some other podcasts.
Yeah, so you need to teach people how to run it like yours.
Oh, thank you. I mean, right now I'm kind of doing everything by myself. So I'm just like, my attention is like all over the place because I don't have a production assistant. It's not that big, I got to sit here and do all the things and all the setup and all the, the editing and yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot more than I ever imagined it would be. So yeah.
That's normally, do you follow, I don't know if you follow Layla or Alex Hermosi?
I know who they are. Yeah.
Okay. They're awesome. Acquisition.com. They built $100 million business. They sold it. Then they started acquisition.com. But one of the things they say that I love, it's actually posted on one of my boards in my office, is that everything will be longer and harder than you ever thought it would be. So that's like always what I have in the back of my mind of like, this is going to potentially take longer and be a lot harder than I ever think it's going to be. Because a lot of times I feel like you see people on Instagram or you see people in the movies and they make it look so easy. Like it's just seamless. And then you actually dig into it and you're like, wow, I had no idea it was this hard.
Yeah. Then you see something like Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon and you're like, oh, how did they do that?
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
So interesting. Like, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and we're over here going like, when the season, whatever, gonna come out. And we have no idea how much goes into it.
Yeah, that's like football. It's like, why didn't he catch that pass? Why didn't he throw it to that player? And you're like, because he's making a split decision. And
Coach left his magic wand in the locker room.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that's hilarious.
Okay, guys. So if you would like to get a hold of Chelsea, you can get a hold of her on Instagram with the little camera at Tru Flow TC. You kind of got the same name across everything. Look, Facebook. You like that Facebook?
I did see that. I was like, what is that? And then, yeah, once you said it, I was like, oh, that was really smart.
I have a problem with overusing emojis.
Yeah, but as long as it works. I like your link tree too, by the way.
Right. Oh, geez. So please follow Chelsea on Instagram so you can get all the tips and tricks and find out how to get a hold of her if you need her. Facebook and the link tree as well.
And my link tree also has, what I'll say is my link tree also has a button that you can click to set up a free consultation with me. If you have questions about deals, if you have questions about how I work, how I can help you. And then it also has my intake form. So if you have a deal that you're ready to start, you just click on that. Super easy. It takes probably no more than 5 minutes. It comes straight to me and then I get on a call with you. We talk through next steps, make sure that we're on the same page about everything. And then I take over. So should be pretty easy to start a deal.
Okay. All right. Sounds great. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And thank you for doing this. This is awesome.
You're so welcome. So hang back after the show and we'll talk a little bit more. And then I also want to thank all you guys for coming out and viewing our podcast here. See, this is what I'm talking about. Like my attention's like do all the things.
You're doing good. You're doing great. Keep it up.
All right. So thank you so much. And join us next time, guys. We'll see you later. Bye.
Thank you.